One. Hello, chefs. Good morning. We are back again. I'm Isaiah, the young Jedi chef, here with the Dragon Warrior chef German Lam and the Phoenix Warrior chef Noreen. We will be your hosts for today's podcast. You are listening to our unique podcast where we will discuss tough yet real topics that need to be heard in the industry. In this podcast, you will hear the truth real, raw, and unfiltered. Today, we have the honor of having Gregory Andrew with us to talk about being committed to your craft and what it takes to refine your body. I'm excited to get started and jump right in. So without further ado, I'll let the star of our show, our guest, Greg, introduce himself. Greg.
Okay, first of all, most people who don't live in the United States don't call me Greg because that's my formal name. Everybody calls me Ed. That's what I'm known as in Australia. So 33 years in Australia. My wife calls me Ed. My sons call me Ed. Um, all my student athletes that I've coached call me Ed, Coach Ed. And then my teammates and friends in Liverpool, England call me Ed too. So, but you could call me anything you want. What I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to start by telling you a story about Chef German. And th this will explain to you German's personality and character. So, when we were in our 20s, we worked together at the Ritz-Carlton in Boston. And he always was a much better chef than I. But our common thread was we both were martial artists and we trained in martial arts, although it was different martial arts we did. But then we would train together. And after work, later at night, like say after 10, 11 o'clock at night, we'd meet up at a place called the Chinatown Boys Club. So like, right off of Harrison Ave, close to what was known as the Combat Zone in Boston. So, not the most salubrious neighborhood. Um, and there actually was no windows in the building on the floor that we train at. And so it was a hot summer night. I'm going to say it was in August just for the story. I can't remember what, I'm going to guess it was August, but it was very hot and humid. And we had a good training session. And as we were finishing, German got this look on his face. Now, understand that German has always been very fit and strong, and he's always had a very low body fat percentage. So maybe even down to like an unhealthy level, I'm going to say, because he became dehydrated and something happened to him that I've only seen a few times, like in the Middle East where it's super hot, where it will get up above 115 degrees. But basically, German's body locked up. And luckily, we were within blocks of the Tufts Medical Center, which is right in Chinatown in Boston, if you don't know. So I threw him in his car and I didn't even bother driving. I went up a one-way street backwards. I reversed his car 2 blocks and then I dragged him into the emergency room and I presented him to the triage nurse and she just kind of looked at me like what are you doing here and what do you want from me? And I said, I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if he's having a seizure or whatever. And basically, they just pumped some saline and Noreen will probably help us with this and some potassium.
Banana bag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he came good within 20 minutes. And I think we went and had a meal in Chinatown after that and well,
Wow.
continued on our way, But yeah, that's German in a nutshell. And he's still the same way. His journey through uh, his rise through cancer and his recovery from that is very consistent with when we were both young, before we were married, and we were just hospitality guys chasing our dreams. And here we are today, a couple of bald blokes in Boston, and we both, our well-being and health is our primary focus, and our families, of course. And as I said to you off this podcast, my son, who of 23, has autism and an intellectual disability, and he's the center of my world, or our world as a family, my wife and I. And yeah, he's German has met him now, and we had a nice dim sum meal together here in Boston, and he got to know my son. So there you go. There's the German story.
Thanks, Coach Ed. Definitely learning a lot about Chef Lam. Good to know. And actually, I have to relate to that story as well. There's something similar, very similar, happened to me as well for the same reason, dehydration. I was at work and I was getting off and I was walking with my friends, and then I just held back for a little bit, and then they're yelling my name. They're like, "What's up?" And then I fell to the floor. I started screaming. My whole body locked up. I couldn't move. And they had to call the ER. I thought I was going to die. But it was really just because I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't eating. I wasn't drinking. None of that stuff. And that it does so much damage to your body. So I could relate so much to that. So thanks for sharing that story, because I think really not just us could relate to it, but anybody could really relate to. They have something similar to where they didn't take care of themselves, and something tragic like that happened. So I think it's important for us to remember uh to put ourselves first in that case. So yeah, thank you so much for that story. And that's actually going to lead us into like kind of the first question and the first topic that we're talking about is, how do you prepare your body? How do you prepare yourself on a daily basis to really deal with the tasks that we're going to put it through, and not only deal with the basic daily tasks, but really challenge our bodies and challenge ourselves. Especially with you in wrestling, how do you push your body to the max, but ensure that your body could handle it? Uh, how do you prepare yourself like on a daily for that?
So I'm going to relate this to um, a chef's daily challenges and work week. Um, you know, let's appreciate that a chef has a physical job. So let's call him a culinary athlete. I'm sure German will agree with me there. And one of the things that a lot of chefs do not do, especially when they're reaching an elite level and they're having to perform at an elite level in an environment, kind of a five-star environment like a Ritz-Carlton, or a fine dining environment. And being a performance athlete, your rest and recovery is as important as your actual doing or work day. So a lot of times our schedules and rosters don't really aren't aligned with that rest and recovery being appropriate. So we have to be very mindful of that. And you said it, Isaiah. I'm going to guess that was a post shift experience,
It was.
and you were probably with a few uh, kitchen teammates or whatever,
Mhm.
culinary teammates, and you were probably out and about and looking to have some fun,
Mhm.
because we all seek those little mini vacations when we're
Mhm.
doing our 12 hours, 14s, sometimes 16s, which is not the healthiest thing, from a physical standpoint and a mental standpoint. So we have to be mindful and intentionally rest and recover, and that includes refueling,
Exactly.
rehydrating, while you're working, after you work.
Mhm.
Also taking time to recover mentally from maybe a stressful shift, or service on
Mhm.
the pass, depending on the environment you work within, or the culinary kitchen that you actually work in. I'm going to assume people who view this aren't just working on a high pressure pass, but also work within, a baking or pastry environment or a catering environment. So those are more marathons than they are sprints, like a night service, a PM dining service. So
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
no, I love that point. And with me, it was, I guess you could say I was trying to be the tough guy, you know. I got the day before I got yelled at for not having something on my station. So I was like, all right, let me show it. I'm just gonna work straight through. I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? I'm gonna make sure I'm extra prepared today. And then that ended up happening. So it was it's always important to even though you have things to do, even though uh there's always going to be work to do in the kitchen no matter what, you know what I mean? So it's always important to just take even 5 minutes, 10 minutes to go think about yourself, you know, just eat something real quick and then drink something real quick and then get back to it because there's always going to be work to be done, always. So the kitchen is not going to miss you for 5, 10 minutes. You know, it's good to take care of yourself and then because if you can't function, then nothing's going to get done. So no, that's a good point. I love that perspective. Noreen, Chef Lam, what's your thoughts on it?
No, absolutely. I think it's a great point, and it's something that I talk with my friends and my coworkers about a lot. There's a lot of, oh, like we're going to this place after work, you should join us. Oh, we're going to this place after work, you should join us. And I'm like, sometimes, sure, plan ahead. Someone's going away for a while or they're leaving the job. We're going to celebrate them. We find time to celebrate and we find time to enjoy and have fun. But most of the time, I'm like, I'm sorry, no. I have to go home. I have to sleep. I have to drink, all this water that I didn't get to drink today. I have to prepare for tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be busy. They're like, "Oh, don't worry about tomorrow. Like it'll be fine." And I was like, no, I've crashed and burned before. And once you've been there and you learn that lesson, you have to internalize it so it doesn't happen again. And what Coach Ed was talking about, like resetting mentally after a stressful day, is a very personal thing. We all reset differently. It's important to explore, like, what is it that resets you? How can you use your days off to reset yourself mentally and feel refreshed so that you don't get to a point where you burn out? And burnout's a real thing. I've been there. I burnt out of one career. I don't want to burn out of this one. And I think it's important for us to talk about burnout and how to avoid it because it can be very detrimental.
No, yeah, it definitely can be. And I like what you said, Noreen, is sometimes you have to say no to going out
Yeah.
and doing stuff like that. And that could be hard, you know. That could be because you're working all day. You see people in and out, it's and then you're still there working. So in your mind, you could feel like you're missing out. But like you said, you have to have that discipline to know, okay, if I don't show up prepared tomorrow, if I don't show up in the right mind state tomorrow, if I don't show up healthy tomorrow, I won't be able to perform at my best. So it's important to remember that. So yeah, thanks for that, Noreen. Chef Lam, what's your take?
Well, my take is, think about how Greg and I met, started our journey, and our industry is so beautiful because you do meet people, and when you do meet people where there's a common core, and ours was martial arts, you know what I mean? And from there, it's like a brotherhood right there, and it pretty much it's like a safety net, We support one another. We know what we need to do. We don't have to, encourage that, hey, sanitation, safety, and respect is part of, wearing the white jacket, So that is the thing that I would say, for us, that's a gift. Most chefs go into this journey, they don't have that. So if they don't have that, what happens? They become a wrecking train, you know what I mean? They crash and burn, and suddenly, they don't have someone to say, hey, this is how you rebuild, this is how you repair, this is how you make sure you're safe, in that environment. So this is something that I know the industry does not talk about, you know, but for us right here, it's a gift, it's a gift to the chefs right now that are listening around the world. That's why martial art is a beautiful part of your cooking because it makes your cooking feel that love that you're missing, that you need, you know. So
No,
Can I jump in there,
yeah, go for it.
Isaiah?
Go for it.
Um, there's a human being uh, that passed that he was also a CIA grad and a very talented man, Anthony Bourdain. And German and I have spoken to each other about him, and you know his journey and what he contributed to culinary arts, massive, and his spirit. But German and I both did his ending of life drew the same emotional guttural reaction. We were both angry. We were angry at whoever was around him, and we felt that they were also had a responsibility to him as in their relationships that are based on love. Let's be real about this. And you know the things that he represented and lived for his life, and what he contributed to us, people he never even met.
Mm,
And I many times have said, oh, to somebody who doesn't really know the Culinary Institute of America, especially you know in Australia, they're like, "What the hell's the CIA?" They don't know what it is. And I said, "Oh, it's the same school that Anthony Bourdain went to." And they went, "Oh, okay, well that makes sense."
yeah.
Then I don't have to say anything else. But German and I, we felt there was a responsibility for whoever was around
Mm.
Chef Bourdain that you know it that shouldn't have happened. We felt,
Mm,
Mm.
and that was you know he did everything to the ultimate basically, and he went out on the ultimate, didn't he? And it it doesn't have to be that way. Just doesn't.
mm,
It probably, I'm going to say this and it's going to sound a little nuts. It probably helped his mystique, right? And that's
Mm.
something, I'm not a media person. I'm just a down the street fella, and I'm a coach. I coach athletes, and their health and well being, their safety is always my first priority. And if I ever witness directly something that I think is risky, whether it's them taking any substance that's going to not be in their best interest or behavior that's not in their best interest, I try to be the voice of reason, knowing that I don't have ultimate control over someone's actions and behaviors,
mm,
but we can be a positive influence just by talking to our friends and showing them some love on the daily. I think that's what German and I felt. Well, obviously, it didn't happen at a key moment or key moments in that man's life.
mm. Yeah.
I don't have intimate knowledge,
Uh,
but
Mm.
I just know he being able to watch him go places and eat things made my life a little bit funner, in those moments. And I didn't want that to end, you know?
yeah.
So he contributed, and we're lesser for his contribution stopping.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you don't know how much you impact people. You don't know how much you're just being impacts so many more people than you might even not even know. And I think like you said, it's not having the love throughout your life that leads you up to that point because nobody has one bad moment and decides they want to do that. It's a lead up, it's a build up, and it's not having the people in your life to that should care that don't care. If you have people in your life that recognize when you're starting to hurt, when something is going wrong, when you're not who you usually are, that's when it leads to that point. And I don't know if you know Anne Burrell. She went to CIA as well. Same thing happened to her. She committed overdose and passed away recently.
Is
Uh,
it that's the lady in
the
Brooklyn,
Lady
right?
Chef, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, same
Okay.
thing with her. So
Yep.
it's common really in the industry and throughout life that people they don't have the mentorship, they don't have the guidance, they don't have the love that we're blessed to have. And it leads them to that point. And that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, so we could share stories like this, so we could share the love, so people feel like they're heard, or if they don't have an outlet, they have this. It's just the small things and you don't realize how much they impact a lot of people. Even when I was at CIA and I was doing these podcasts, I had a student, fellow student that came up to me and they were saying how much, they watch these podcasts every week and how much it means to them and just saying to keep it up. So you never know who's listening. You never know who's watching. Anything that you say, it might not affect you, but it's gonna affect the other person in a different way. So it's important to make that known and share stories like this. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Greg. And it's like, yeah. And that was gonna actually be my next question. What, personally in your life, who has been that person for you that recognizes when you're not that way, or have you been that person to somebody else? I know you're a coach, so obviously you probably have your students and all that stuff, but like in your life personally, who has been that person for you?
Well, I I can only say I know I've made one really good long-term decision, and
Mm,
that was when, I became one half of a partnership.
Mhm.
And I've been married 33 years. This is my 34th year. And with my wife, and we have two sons. And you know, I can say, that's another common thread German and I have. I went to German, my wife and I went to German's wedding
wow.
in Chinatown in Boston. You know, this is what we are. And you see food always played a role, but that partnership is, I know German values his, I value mine. Um, and this will be the fourth returning to the United States from outside. I actually have lived outside the United States longer than I lived inside the United States within my life. So we've returned just recently, and because of my wife's job, she's an accountant, just like German's wife is an accountant also. Um, and here we are. I'm gifted with that relationship, and that's what grounds me. And when I think I'm a little more special than I am, she reminds me that special ed is ain't so special, But the love within our home and with our sons, and having a son with a disability also is something that it gives me purpose also,
Mm,
and meaning in a daily basis. We call my son the gift because he truly is a gift. A lot of hard work, and there's challenges and struggle, but that's what life is. You
mm,
know, every time that the key goes in the door of a kitchen, that day starts. There's challenges and struggles. It's
mm,
a it's a parallel.
yeah.
The the thing about cooking and being a chef is it's a carousel, and it's the food is perishable. The our our life cycle of the products that we interact with or the ingredients that we're gifted with. Sometimes they're not the greatest gifts. Most times they are, especially in this country, uh, at a higher level. And we need to treat them with respect and also understand that when we're doing what we do, the respect we show and the technique we use to create the end result is a process, and that includes uh, relationships within your team, within your home environment, and then with your ingredients.
Mhm.
You know, so relationships are the base of all this stuff, right, German?
Mise en place, baby.
Mhm. All things in their place. You know, if it ain't if it ain't solid at home, don't think it's going to be solid anywhere else.
No, I
You
love
know?
that point. Yeah, because a lot of people bring their, if you don't have a solid relationship with your partner, with your kids at home, a lot of people bring that into the world. They bring their anger into the world, they bring their feelings, their emotions into the world, and they're just looking for somebody to pay them some type of attention. Whatever way they'll get that attention is up to them, but that's what they're looking for. So it's important to have that solid base at home, whether if even if it's just you or if it's you and your partner or you and your family, it's important to have that solid foundation in that base. That way you don't give off that energy, into the world and then let that affect you, yourself, or other people. I love that point of view. Chef Lam, Noreen,
Yeah.
what's your take on it?
Absolutely. I'm so glad this came up because it's been something that is on my mind when it comes to personal relationships and working in the food industry, like especially marriage. I'm not married. I'm not in a relationship at this point, but it is something that I see over and over again, a lot of divorce, a lot of infidelity, a lot of turbulence, and I'm hopefully can get some good advice from those who have successful marriages. But it's really hard to maintain a good marriage or a good relationship. And it's important. It's something Chef Lam has told me. Like, if you're gonna be in a relationship or when you find that person, you have to make sure that they're solid. You can't work in chaos, beautiful chaos is what I like to call it, and then come home and have more chaos and more turbulence because you need stability, you need strength, you need to be at home, you need a partner because this life is very, very difficult. So we have to choose wisely, know when it's not going well, figure out how to fix it, or if we need to move on from it. It's something I see over and over and over again in the industry. And I'm really glad it came up because I think something that we need to put out there for people to really think about. It's a big decision, who you commit yourself to. And it can be the most wonderful thing that, Coach Ed is like, his wife, that's his rock, that's his person, that's someone there for the good, bad, and the ugly. And that's really, really, human connection in general, friends and family. That's one of the most important things that we have, and we need to cherish, and we need to make sure it's strong foundation as well. It's not just work, work, work. If you're
Mhm.
not stable at home, like you said, Isaiah, you're not going to be stable anywhere else in your life.
Yeah, so true. I love that point, Noreen. Chef Lam, what's your take on it?
Well, like I always say, it starts with your parents, and from your parents, your family. You know, your wife, your kids, and from there, that is the rock. And like I always say, cooking is an emotional, it's physical. There's a lot of feeling. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of joy. There's a lot of laughing. And as a chef, you just have to know how to kind of take all that and think about empathy. The word that we talk about, but most people really don't know what empathy is because they really never experienced this. Like this podcast, I would say is a very, very powerful podcast, right? Because it's about realness. We talk about Anthony Bourdain. Like I always said, I said, man, I mean, what happened to his peeps, you know? Because if I had peeps around me, you know, I hope they wouldn't let me, you know, go down like that, you know? So to me, that is something, you know, when you talk about people, you really have to know, you have to know them. I mean, are they gonna come to you and hug you and say, "Hey, let's go. You're gonna be okay," you know? So,
Exactly. No, that's important. And I like how you said it starts with your parents and how you were raised too. But as I grew up and as I got older, I realized that a lot of people they don't have parents that I mean, some people a lot of people do, but there are some people that don't really have parents that were there for them in that way necessarily. Everybody grows up differently. And going to college, just hearing some of my friends' stories, they didn't I'm a lot more blessed than a lot of people were with the parents that I have. A lot of other parents aren't as supportive as you are, Chef Lam, and you are, Coach Ed, and my parents were, and I'm sure yours were too, Noreen. But just hearing their stories and hearing how they grew up and what they had to go through is, it just makes me even more grateful and makes me want to be that person to somebody else, to other people. So you really just you got to show love in every way possible, in your career and life and in general. So I love that point, Chef Lam. So we have about 5 minutes left. Coach Ed, what's if you had one, let's say if you had one life lesson that you want to share with the world or something just to you want to share in this podcast that you feel you haven't been able to say yet, what would that be?
Um, to me, my journey has been about fighting and combat sports, and that even played a role when I was at the Culinary Institute. Like I said to you, me and another bloke, we represented CIA at the Collegiate Nationals, the karate championships. So the thing is to back yourself or do what we say in Australia, back yourself, get behind yourself, believe,
Hmm.
just and don't be afraid to take a risk if it's something you really want to do and you're willing to give it everything for it. Just do it. It is that simple. I've now lived I'm just a neighborhood guy. I never wanted for anything growing up, but I'm just a neighborhood guy. My grandfather immigrated from Hungary and had a fur shop on the street, downtown Boston. My father went to, the seminary. He became a social worker. Then he got into public health. My my brothers and sisters went to public colleges, here in Massachusetts. I was the outlier in the family. I went to, a private school, the Culinary Institute, and it's never been cheap. Let's recognize that. I didn't realize the sacrifices my parents made so I could attend the 2 years. I appreciated it at the moment, at the time, but I didn't realize the sacrifices on a government wage, you know, and I value that. So, here we are on a journey. Whatever you choose, make sure.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I think
Yeah, I
Coach
think
Ed is glitching just a little bit here.
Coach Ed, can you hear us? Coach Ed? Yeah, I think he may be glitching
Yeah.
out
It's a
a
great
little.
pose we got there,
I
but
know, right?
uh,
I
very
was I was
powerful.
enjoying I was
But
enjoying the story.
yeah, no, I love what he was saying, to really don't be afraid to take a risk if you feel like it's worth it.
Exactly. Yeah, no. Coach Ed, you back with us?
Yes.
You glitched out for a second.
Did you catch my message about just believing and backing yourself?
Yeah,
That's it. That's it.
yeah,
It's that
yeah,
simple.
exactly. Yeah, you got to believe in yourself first, because if you don't believe in yourself, surely, how can you expect the world to believe in you? You know, there's a lot of people that are, you know, that are there to be not supportive. So it's important to believe in yourself first, and you will attract supportive people when you do that. So yeah, that's a great point, Chef. I mean, sorry, Coach Ed.
You can call me. I don't, whatever you want to call me.
Yeah, that's a great
I'm
point.
easy. I'm not a.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we have about like a minute left. It's really been truly special to have you on this podcast. And I think this is definitely one of our most authentic podcasts yet. Um, and we really appreciate, your storytelling. We really appreciate how deep you got, because that's really what makes a difference. And in this podcast and our journey, as people, it's important to get deep and not be shallow with things, but really tell the truth and share stories, because that's how people, how people are hurt and how people are healed. So thank you so much for your time today. And in this podcast, we made history, and it's not only going to impact those listening, but those that are connected to them as well. So we thank you so much, Coach Ed. It's been an honor. And see you guys on the next podcast.